Welcome back, fellow Patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Patriots of the American Republic. Let's go ahead and jump into our new episode. Now, it's undeniable that no matter what Trump says or does, the left will automatically go against it. Even though they may have championed it in prior years, right? They will attribute anything they can regarding the economy to a prior administration, like they did with Obama, while simultaneously fear-mongering with calls of a recession, right? And their audience is easily manipulated because of the emotional hatred that they have towards Donald Trump. The left seems to champion for Trump to fail and even participate in it, arguably, while not realizing that Trump's failure is directly attached to the success and well-being of the American people. Now, although I have disagreed with Biden and Obama's views and policies, I never championed for their failure, nor would I desire them to fail because it would impact our country negatively. The left is so deranged and unhinged, they can't see that, and they will celebrate Trump's failures even at the cost of our country. Now, since the tariff war started, it was obvious they sided with everyone else on this matter, including China, a communistic country, and our economic rival. Now, if this doesn't scream insanity to anyone, I'm not sure really what will at this juncture. But let's go through the process, let's go through the motions, and let's go through the videos that I have to prove the case, right? One of the challenges that President Trump inherited was the war between Russia and Ukraine. I have to mention the fact that there was no war during his first term. No one invaded anybody, right? That fact cannot be said neither in Obama's case and obviously not in Biden's case. Now, dealing with both sides has been difficult as Zelensky was scheduled to sign a rare earth minerals agreement in exchange for the support that America has provided to Ukraine. Now, in a never-before-seen moment, Zelensky, who was visiting the White House, appears to have disrespected the president and refused to sign the deal that was more than likely already previously agreed upon. Like, I can't imagine like the details are weren't previously agreed upon and that, Zelensky felt good, we felt good. Hey, come on over. We're going to sign everything out, come to the White House, etc., etc. Like, this was supposed to be nothing more than a photo op and a free breakfast for Zelensky at that juncture, right? So, but obviously that didn't work out as he, started to disrespect and insult. And I'm sure you guys have seen the video, but it seemed like the deal was honestly not going to happen ever. Especially if you listen to like the left, who is obviously in love with Zelensky, despite his questionable actions during his presidency in Ukraine, right? Thankfully, just a few weeks after this train wreck, Zelensky actually returned and signed the deal. So at this juncture, over this current past weekend, Russian President Putin has confirmed that he is ready to talk with Zelensky in Turkey this coming Thursday. So we'll be watching to see how this ends, and if it ends thanks to the pressure coming from President Trump.
President Zelensky has said he's ready to meet Vladimir Putin in Istanbul on Thursday for talks on ending the Ukraine war. Mr. Zelensky had previously said a full ceasefire should begin ahead of any talks, but after coming under pressure from Donald Trump this evening, he dropped that demand. Mr. Trump insisted that talks should take place without delay to determine whether a peace deal was possible. Mr. Putin proposed the direct talks, the first since 2022, but didn't specify whether he would attend. From Kyiv, here's Frank Gardner.
It was all going so well for Ukraine. To Kyiv they came, leaders of some of Europe's most important countries, with an ultimatum for Russia: sign up to a ceasefire on Monday or face new sanctions. But Vladimir Putin has other ideas. Instead of a ceasefire, direct talks, Russia and Ukraine, in Istanbul next Thursday.
So the situation remains volatile, but we'll keep our eyes peeled as we, hope that this war comes to an end very, very soon. But hopefully, a peace deal can take place, right? Next, on April 22nd, of this year, India was attacked by Muslim terrorists from Pakistan. Within a few days, India retaliated by sending rockets and blowing up a number of Pakistani targets. Pakistan's prime minister took to social media to post his response and potential actions that Pakistan was ready to take in response to the issue at hand, right? It seemed like they were even willing to escalate things, right? So tensions were mounting in that area, not just for Pakistan and India, but obviously the surrounding countries, as well as any trade routes that may be impacted or trade in general, right? So last week, it was announced that Trump's administration was able to negotiate a ceasefire between the two countries, de-escalating the situation. Let's take a look.
Pakistan and India hinting at de-escalating their current conflict after firing missiles at each other hours earlier. Now, the two have been locked in hostilities after a gun massacre last month that India blames on Pakistan. Well, part of that breaking news here, as we pop this up on your screen, is coming from President Donald Trump himself. He posted here on Truth Social moments ago saying that after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, again, that is a post coming in on Truth Social from President Donald Trump a short time ago. We also have this message that was tweeted out or posted on X by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He says, over the past 48 hours, Vice President Vance and I have engaged with senior Indian and Pakistani officials, including the prime ministers as well as other officials there. I am pleased to announce the governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site. We commend prime ministers there on their wisdom, prudence, and statesmanship in choosing the path of peace.
You know, I'm thankful that the Trump administration was involved in the ceasefire, and I hope it remains this way as, you know, the tensions between those two countries that have played out for decades or possibly even centuries, those types of things take time to mend. But the United States is there trying to mend, trying to squash, trying to calm people down, right? The two leaders, and, you know, come to diplomacy and try and talk things out. So the ceasefire is there. Hopefully it stays, and hopefully, again, just like in the other case, peace prevails, right? Next topic I like to cover is there were some secret operations that took place just a couple of days ago. So, you know, I've covered some news regarding the situation in Venezuela, specifically showcasing how their tactics mimic those of the Democratic Party, of the modern Democratic Party, right? As well as highlighting their leftist socialistic ideology, right? There's commonality there. Over the past few months, there have been a number, I think it was 5 Venezuelans who opposed the Maduro regime that were trapped in an Argentinian embassy. Knowing the Maduro regime cannot storm that embassy without facing serious consequences from Argentina, the Maduro regime crafted a strategy to cut electricity, cut water, and obviously food or resources going to that building. This strategy was either to starve them out to death, right? Or pressure them to come out of the building and then capture them, right? Because that's what dictators do, right? So over the weekend, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on his social media account that the U.S. essentially conducted a successful operation in saving these Venezuelans. The sentiment was echoed by Maria Corina Machado, who is part of the opposition party that ran against Maduro during last year's, if you want to call them, elections, right? I say that because we know that when it comes to dictatorships and communists, even though it's not official, these elections are just to squash an uprising or to prevent intervention from an international community, right? It's just an election, you know, just for the just to go through the process, right? But it's not a true election. So Mrs. Machado is currently in hiding for fear of actual political persecution, right? Now, she's been offered safe haven in countries such as Spain and Panama, but she's refused it because she's not going to abandon her country, even at the cost of her life, which is very brave of her. Mrs. Machado, has spoken to all sides of the political spectrum. I've seen her on CNN Spanish. She's been on with Donald Trump Jr. And just recently, she was actually on with Maria Bartiromo over on Fox. Let's take a listen to not only her giving her account, but confirming that, the statement that Marco Rubio had put on his social media platform.
Joining me now in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive from an undisclosed location in Venezuela is Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, whose 84-year-old mother just escaped Maduro's rule, fleeing the country. Maria, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your time. And I know that you have been hiding for 9 months. You've been barred from leaving the country for 11 years. You are in an undisclosed location right now. But the fact that your mother was able to flee and the fact that those people who are opposition leaders were able to get rescued shows you something about the cracked loyalty to Maduro. What can you tell us, Maria?
Absolutely. And I'm very grateful to you for this opportunity and to President Trump and all his great team at the Department of State that made this operation that was so complex and precise and executed perfectly to bring our colleagues to safety. And as you say, it demonstrates that Maduro's last line of support with his repression structure has a major breach. And this has been having great effect within the regime. I want to be very clear, Maduro is weaker than ever. Totally rejected by 90% of the people, internationally isolated, and now with fractures within the regime.
What can you do, Maria? You are stuck there. They are looking for you. They've been searching for you. They want to take you in. What can you tell us about your efforts and what the situation is like right now for you? Are you concerned about your own safety?
Well, of course we are. We all are. We have more than 900 political prisoners right now that have been tortured, women that have been sexually assaulted. It's brutal. But the fact is that we're moving forward. And the fact that we have, this unwavering support from President Trump make things move ahead. And I believe that we have the greatest opportunity in front of us. And I want to insist this. A free Venezuela, Maria, is the greatest opportunity from a security perspective and also from a business and energy perspective to the U.S. And that's what we will do. Venezuela will be free. Venezuela will be a reliable partner of the U.S. We will kick out Iranian forces and agents, the Hezbollah, that have turned Venezuela into a operational base of the Iranian regime. And we will build a partnership to create a security shield for the Americas, for the stability of the region, and also for the national security of the U.S.
So great news that those people were saved, including Maria Corina Machado's mother was among those. But as you can see there, by her own words, confirming what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had been saying. Now, do you guys recall me telling you how the Hispanic community doesn't really get alternative information and they're just completely sucked in by left-wing propaganda? In this next video, I'm going to play a very small clip of a Hispanic Trump hater named Jaime Bailey. Jamie Bailey, essentially. This guy is your typical CNN deranged never Trumper, but in Spanish, right? In this video, he describes two articles when this entire scenario came out. So there were, after this post, there were two news sources that came out with different versions of what took place, right? So in this video, this guy is accounting both stories, right? And then he gives his analysis. One was from the Wall Street Journal, who he claims, is a very reliable source. And the other one was from a place I had never heard from before called Infobay. So, and he also claims that Infobay has in the past been a trustworthy news source. I don't know that. I've never heard of them, so I can't really speak to that. So, Now, there seems to be at that juncture, when this came out, which was like about maybe 3-4 days ago at this point, there seems to have been a question regarding if this was a negotiated release of these 5 Venezuelans, or was it some type of a military extraction? So the Wall Street Journal seems to deny any involvement of the U.S. and implies and gives full credit to the Brazilian president and government, right? Which didn't make sense to me, because the Brazilian president is a big giant leftist. So I think we've already established that the left likes socialism and communism. So that right off of off the top didn't make sense to me when I first saw this video. Now, on the Infobay article, it points to the Trump administration being at the head of this rescue mission. Which do you think this Trump hater leaned towards? So if you guessed the Wall Street Journal, you'd be correct, because heck, they can't give any credit to Trump or any of his administration for anything positive. But what's really interesting, because this guy hates Trump so much, that speaking on the Infobay scenario, he seems to only give credit to Marco Rubio. He only wants to give credit to Marco Rubio for the success of that mission, even though he acknowledges that in order for Marco Rubio to pull that off, he's going to need the approval of Donald J. Trump. So it's just unbelievable how deranged the left is, that they can't tell the facts the way that they are. They have to throw in, they have to put their finger on the scale. But what I want you to do, I want to highlight the part, a very specific part in this video, because it is pretty long and it is a lot of Spanish, and I don't really feel like translating the whole darn thing, but I do want to focus on this very, very small piece.
Marco Rubio tendría obviamente que pedirle permiso a su jefe, ¿no? O sea, a Trump. Y si a Trump le dicen, podemos entrar con 2 o 3 helicópteros a Caracas a rescatar a 5 venezolanos presos en la embajada argentina, yo estoy seguro de que Trump diría que no. Entonces, no creo que Trump haya aprobado una operación militar con soldados en tierra, con helicópteros, con un avión en Venezuela. No lo creo. A lo mejor ha sido así y me desmiente y quedo en ridículo, pero no lo creo.
In his video, I'm going to recap what he says. He essentially says, I'm going to believe the details of the operation provided by the Wall Street Journal. Of course, it could turn out that the Trump administration was involved in this rescue, and I'll look ridiculous for having reported things incorrectly. And I'm just giving you a summarized version. I'm not actually quoting him. So guess what? He and every Trump hater regularly look stupid, but that doesn't seem to stop them from doing any self-reflection or change their bias or even rethink of their hatred in relation to their professionalism, because this guy was obviously wrong. And he didn't flat out, say this one is for sure. I get that in his video, so I don't want to completely throw him under the bus, but he definitely got his intuition incorrect. Now, the interesting part, that video was done like about 4 days ago. I have yet to see an acknowledgement, a retraction, a correction, an update, nothing. So it essentially it leaves people to believe, anybody who sees that, they didn't get any correct information. You know what I'm saying? There needs to be, if this guy was really serious about what he does, he would actually make another video the way that he did that one to his audience, correcting it and telling the details as it is. Moving on to the next section. The issue with immigration has gotten to a ridiculous point, as people who came into our country, arguably a modern-day invasion, required due process in order to be deported. The only thing that I can agree with is making sure that the people being deported are actual gang members, if we're talking about specifically deporting them to CICOT in El Salvador. But, and that's whether, regardless of whether they were previously active or currently active, if you got some type of gang affiliation, that's where you're going to go. Now, if you don't, I can understand just making sure that we're deporting you to the right area if you're not involved in anything criminal of that nature, or you're not involved in a gang, or you don't have like a serious criminal record even from the country that you came from, because that again the left likes to manipulate. Oh, they didn't commit a crime here in the U.S., but these guys committed crimes back in their home country, right? Or vice versa, right? Or both in some cases, right? But if we're talking about just regular deportations of just regular people, we need to make sure that they're not being sent to a jail facility such as CCOT, right? Then at that point, they should be deported back to their country of origin, right? So on Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump can deport Venezuelan illegal aliens under the Aliens Enemy Act, overruling the prior ruling from the lower courts from a federal judge. Let's take a look.
All right, folks. So, yep, Donald Trump wins. The Supreme Court just handed him the green light to move forward with mass deportations of gang-linked illegal migrants under the Alien Enemies Act.
We're getting some breaking news at this hour coming out of the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court has handed President Trump a victory, letting him and his administration use the 1798 law that historically has been employed only in wartime to swiftly deport alleged Venezuelan gang members as part of the Republican president's hardline approach to immigration, granting that administration request to lift the Washington-based U.S. judge James Boasberg's March 15th order that had temporarily blocked the summary deportations under the Alien Enemies Act while litigation in the case continues.
So this is a huge victory while Democrats take another L, as a few New Jersey Democrats attempted to storm an ICE facility in Newark, New Jersey, and quickly found themselves being arrested for trespassing. And it gives me a lot of joy to see that because, in echoing the words that were used by the left when they were going after Trump, no one is above the law. So it gives me great pleasure to say that now because these people got arrested.
DHS says, quote, a group of protesters, including 2 members of Congress, stormed the gate and broke into the ICE detention facility. Robert Menendez Jr. and Bonnie Watson Coleman and multiple protesters are holed up in a guard shack area, the first security checkpoint. Interim U.S. Attorney Alina Habba for the District of New Jersey posting on X that Newark's Democrat Mayor Ras Baraka was there and, quote, committed trespass. Here he is talking about the facility earlier in the week.
We know what ICE has done in the past. We've seen them. We know how they operate. We know that they have picked people up who have not broken any laws. We know they've deported people and refused to bring them back.
We shall not be moved. Shut down delay. We shall not be moved just like a tree. Get off of her! You cannot push it! You cannot Congress! You can't push members of Congress! This is peaceful! You are fascist!
So this gives me a little bit of optimism that more Democrats will get arrested for breaking the law. But to be quite frank, I'm not going to be satisfied until the big fish start coming down, to be quite frank. We're talking about people who are on Epstein's list. We're talking about, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Comey, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, all of those corrupt people, including Hunter Biden and even Joe Biden, if it's possible. The big guy, even if that's possible, right? Now, another great victory that Trump is, we have to credit the Trump team to, is the fact that Hamas has agreed to release the last American hostage from their disgusting October 7th attack back in 2023. Let's take a look.
Very happy to announce that Idan Alexander, an American citizen who until recently most thought was no longer living, thought was dead, is going to be released in about 2 hours, actually. And he's going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who's done a fantastic job.
This, like so many other examples, emulates the peace through strength strategy that Ronald Reagan had, that he was famous for, and Donald Trump continues to emulate. Now, since Trump announced the reciprocal tariffs, it's been nonstop doom and gloom from the leftist media. Ongoing chance of recession, a total collapse of the economy, when the stock market took a slight dip. Then, as countries began coming to the table, Trump put a 90-day pause on tariffs, causing the markets to bounce back a good chunk of that dip, which then turned the Democrats into accusing Trump of insider trading with absolutely no evidence, right? Thankfully, that chant of stupidity fell short, as it didn't really work on the American majority, right? But since then, the White House has confirmed a number of countries wanting to renegotiate in order to avoid those tariffs. So we reported how Israel was going to completely eliminate all of its tariffs towards the US, and similar sentiments came from a number of other countries, right? Last week, it was announced that the US and the UK came to new trade agreements that would mutually benefit both countries. Let's take a listen.
The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. And our Secretary, as you know, of Agriculture is here. Brooke, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, sir.
You'll let the farmers know. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products. But this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries, because it'll be really great for the UK also. So,
and in the end, it comes down to, as you say, Donald, economic security is national security. On national security, we've been absolutely the closest of allies for so many years, keeping the peace through that close alliance, that friendship. And now we add to that this deal on trade and the economy. And I want to thank you for your leadership on that, Donald, and for the way in which your team have negotiated this. And I'm so pleased that we've got this deal. We've finalized it.
The leftist media, instead of cheering and giving credit to Trump, they continue to discredit and even seem like they're rooting for governments like China to defeat Trump's tariff strategy.
So it's been more than a month, if you can believe it, since Donald Trump announced his sweeping and pretty ridiculous tariffs. But Mr. Art of the Deal, as he calls himself, has not yet struck a single trade deal, not a single one, with any single country.
A few moments later.
A source telling CNN tonight that Trump is going to announce a trade deal with the UK tomorrow. Is that something you would consider a major trade deal?
No. So let's get some numbers and some context for the people at home. The United Kingdom, wonderful country, lovely people, love myself some fish and chips, don't mind their beer, but they're our 11th largest trading partner. They account for 3% of American trade. And if I took off all my shoes and socks and got 4 more people in the room, I'd be able to tell you that that leaves 97% of American trade are absolutely up in the air. Now, Laura, I want to tell you one more fact that will blow your mind. Mm-hmm. Go back 6 weeks ago. The average tariff the United Kingdom charged to countries around the world was 1%. That's the stakes here. So the best we can do is knock the United Kingdom down from 1% to 0, and it's already clear we didn't get them to 0. And along the way, the president is imposing a 10% tariff on the United Kingdom, making it harder for Americans to do business with trading partners over in the old dart.
This is relatively low-hanging fruit. If you can't get a trade deal with the longest-standing and loyalist United States ally anywhere in the world over generations, you're going to be in trouble when you're dealing with some of the more obstreperous countries around the world, the ones that are more willing to resist your entreaties. And
let's go live right now to CNN senior White House correspondent Kristen Holmes. Kristen, just how significant is today's announcement?
Well, Wolf, it depends on what you mean by the word significant. Do you mean significant in terms of an actual trade deal, or just the fact that there is a deal at all? Because what we are hearing right now is that this deal between the two countries is not actually going to be any what majorly significant. For example, we've heard it's limited in scope, that it is heavy on future commitments. But it is a big deal in the sense that Donald Trump and his administration have been touting for weeks now that they were going to get a trade deal. And in fact, when I talked to administration officials and allies of the president, they seem somewhat desperate to get a trade deal on the table to show that the economy was moving forward.
So did you notice how we went from tariffs are ridiculous to low-hanging fruit? And well, if you can't strike a deal there, then et cetera, right? All the nonsense that they spew, right? So if it's such low-hanging fruit, why was it even there? Like, why wasn't the renegotiation done before? Again, the left seems to be okay with the status quo of having America at the losing end of just about everything. Well, it's a great day as over the weekend, the Trump team met with their Chinese counterparts over in Geneva. And to my surprise, they seemed to work out some type of a trade deal which would lower tariffs to around 30%, give or take. I think it's 30% on the U.S. or on China and 10% on the U.S. for the next 90 days. Let's take a listen to the update from our wonderful press secretary.
Fox News alert overnight, the Trump administration securing another win, announcing a major tariff deal with China. Trade will be one of the major issues on the agenda. When the president makes his high-stakes trip, and the first one to the Middle East, he's going overseas today. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt joins us now. Caroline, we're just mentioning there's probably 7 major stories. I know I'm going to disappoint somebody by not bringing it up. First off, your reaction, and what could you tell us about the China deal that has tariffs dropping from 145, 125 respectively to 30 and 10?
This is an extraordinary first step in the right direction. And thanks to the strength of President Trump, Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer were able to cut this initial deal with China. China agreed to reduce their tariffs on the United States by 115%. They also agreed to continue having discussions about opening Chinese markets to American-made products and goods. And they also agreed to continue seriously discussing the grave impact that Chinese-produced fentanyl is having right here in the United States and our people. So this is a great first step for the American public, and Secretary Bessent, Ambassador Greer, and of course President Trump will continue negotiations with China so we can hopefully inevitably get to a fair and comprehensive big trade deal.
So now that we have this announced, this China deal announced, how are the haters reacting to that today? What's their new talking point for their cult followers?
Comes in and basically starts the dumbest trade war in the history of this country. This is going to be about potentially millions of people losing their jobs. It's going to be about millions of people losing their savings, many of people losing their retirement security, and at the same time taking on even higher costs for everything they buy. So that's going to push us in potentially to foreclosures or people being pushed out of their apartments.
A few moments later.
This is CNN breaking news.
And the breaking news this morning, a major breakthrough in the trade war between the United States and China. The two sides making a surprise announcement after a weekend of talks in Switzerland under the agreement unveiled by the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. For 90 days, the U.S. is going to cut its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% down to 30%. And China will cut its levies on U.S. imports from 125% to 10%. During these 90 days, then, the countries say that the negotiations continue. Globally, markets are cheering the news. U.S. stock futures, we'll take a look at that, way up ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street after weeks of wild volatility that we've all been experiencing and covering over President Trump's tariffs, which have disrupted supply chains and raised recession fears.
So we already can see the leftist media working overtime to continue to champion for America's failure. Now, I'm not perhaps economically or maybe mathematically as inclined as the left is, but based on the numbers that Trump showed during Liberation Day, China was charging us around 67% tariffs, and we were charging 34% tariffs. Based on the numbers that were shown by Fox, confirmed by our press secretary, We went down to 30% tariffs, and they went down to 10%. So let's do that math, and not from the hike, because they gave the numbers from the hike. So we were above 100% on both cases, 145, 125. Let's not do that. Let's go from before the tariff ping pong battle, right? We went down 4%, right? So from 34% to 30, while China went down 57%. They went from 67 down to 10. And yet I'm seeing videos with headliners talking about China played Trump and that Trump is weak. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. I don't understand how people can have this much TDS in their lives that they can't do. Just look at the simplicity of the numbers. At this juncture, we're winning. So, if the media was fair, and let's just say the roles were reversed, let's say Biden did this, they would be hallelujahing from the mountaintops, right? But because it's Trump, no, this is bad. This is bad. Also, remember all these fear-mongering talking points like Senator Warren, when things don't go that route. Anytime these people talk, the experts, remember what the experts got right and what they got wrong, so that next time you don't get tricked by them, or next time you know who to trust and who not to trust. But ladies and gentlemen, we are not even at the 5th month mark, and Trump is making huge strides. Deals such as everything that we covered today, including the deal that secured the Panama Canal, have me looking forward to other deals, such as the upcoming tax breaks. I think these deals could come a lot quicker and a lot sooner if it wasn't for the Democrats trying to impede Trump's goals. And I'm not sure what strategy the Democrats are going to come up with for the midterms, but I don't think they'll be successful with simply just doing the opposite of what Trump does. Like going against everything and anything. Like that's not a winning message. In order for them to gain those middle ground people, they'll need to sell them an idea that they are still for them. And unfortunately, I think it's painstakingly clear that they're not. So they're not for the everyday American. Rather, they've proven that they're for foreigners who broke our laws to get in here. And worse, they've been defending hardened criminal aliens that really no one should be defending at this juncture. They need to sell something different to those middle ground people. I don't know why I'm giving them any advice, because I hope they keep doing what they're doing. It's going to be an easy midterm and another easy re-election. Whatever. But I also want there to be, you never want, even with an open market, you never want one person selling you one particular product, because then I can charge you whatever I want. You're going to pay for it because I'm the only person selling it and you need it. You need healthy competition in order to keep things in check. Oh, I've got a competitor. I got to keep my prices competitive or down or lower because this person is going to outsell me. Then the other person comes in, oh, you're selling that for $5. Now I need to sell it for $4.50. Right? Having that type of competition is good. And I think that if the Republicans really do possess one side, I just look at it this way. I look at it, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We need the Democrats to be on their toes so we can keep slamming them down, to be honest with you. And eventually, I would suspect that the Republicans could, having a sustained amount of power, might potentially become even more corrupt than they are, today, right? Both sides are corrupt, don't get me wrong. It's just that one is insane and corrupt, right? While the other one has a few actual MAGA patriots sprinkled in there, but the rest are all just as bad. Anyhow, the left's loyalty for America, or lack thereof, really seems to stand out as they constantly cheer and root against America's best interest simply because Donald Trump is the leader, and it's shameful. It's shameful that the left cannot support America and America winning simply because Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief. So guys, that's it. That's what I have for you on this video. I look forward to the new deals that are going to be the details of the new deal and everything that's going to come out in the next coming weeks. So guys, thank you for joining me. God bless you. God bless America, and God bless Donald Trump. Bye-bye.